starts right now.
And good afternoon. I'm Michelle Millman along with John Nicely on this May Day. Right now, Seattle police are holding their first briefing of the day.
We're going to listen into what Seattle police have to say as they prepare for May Day.
Your safety or anything that were expressed to you at that briefing?
No, I think the department's come together pretty well with our training, our equipment, the purchases we've made, and the briefings we've had. The feedback I've gotten is that everyone feels prepared to work through all the challenges that day might present.
You gave us a briefing on Friday, and we talked about what you had heard, if anything, about what was going to happen. Has anything changed since Friday in terms of chatter online or any protests that have popped up that are different?
Well, I think we've seen today with the immigration march, we have fewer people at the University of Washington. We saw the veterans that got up to Judkins Park. That was about the numbers as expected. And we'll see, I think we're up to about 1,500 or so for the immigration march. So I think all that's within range, the range that we expected. This afternoon, though, we are expecting a little more organizational response from the Proud Boys. There's some talk that they're going to be at Westlake Park this afternoon, may give speeches and those types of things. So we'll shift our attention over to there in the next couple of hours.
What's your level of concern on crowd-on-crowd violence? We saw some of it on Inauguration Day. It's kind of different than years before. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, and the chief mentioned this in a briefing earlier in the week, that years past we've seen violence and property damage against the businesses. Last couple of years it's been against the police. This year I think it's really much more a crowd-on-crowd threat. Certainly we've seen that nationally. Taking that into consideration with our staffing and our tactics, and I think we're prepared to be able to deal with that if it happens.
How do you navigate the two sides then? I mean, allowing them to, express whatever they want to express, but also, trying to protect the safety and the rights of others?
Well, some of it is who's where first. So if you get one group at a certain location first, and they kind of have possession being 9/10, they've got that spot, and then we see who's coming into it. Is it a group that may or may not be anti whatever group is there? Then we'll adjust the officers that we have in those locations. We'll bring more officers down. We'll attempt to use our presence to ensure that everyone is safe, follows the law, allows everybody to express themselves. But if we have to take action, then we'll be able to do that.
Can we talk about the freeways and the importance of keeping traffic moving?
Yeah, our mutual aid partners and the State Patrol have been a great help in managing the freeway situation and other situations as well. You'll see some outside agencies that are here to help us with those kinds of challenges. Specifically, I think the State Patrol addressed that earlier in the week. They've certainly upstaffed. We've worked consistently with them on all of our protests. So they have a strong presence with us, and we'll continue to work the tactics that we've worked with them to make sure that people stay off the freeways.
And we're listening in to Seattle Police Captain Chris Fowler, who's saying so far this morning the crowds are about what they were expecting, but this afternoon their focus will shift to Westlake Park in the next couple of hours.
Yeah, big concern this year, they're saying, is crowd-on-crowd potential for violence. So that's something that would be different than what we've seen with violence and unrest and property damage in years past. So we're going to be following this throughout the day. That news conference is streaming right now on KIRO7.com if you want to watch it. We got a lot more May Day coverage to get to now.
That's right. Captain Fowler also talked about this. The Veterans March for May Day 2017 was the first of the day, but it certainly won't be the last. Live team coverage now follows May Day events throughout our hour of News at Noon.
And we're going to go to KIRO 7's Jeff Du Bois now, who was there for the day's first march, and he joins us live at Judkins Park. Hey, Jeff.
Ed, John, Michelle, good afternoon. This is where a lot of these smaller marches and rallies are gathering here at Judkins Park. You can see probably, 400 or 500 people here so far, but authorities expect several hundred people more to join this rally over the next hour or so. And then as they march down to Seattle Center, there could be as many as 8,000 people that join the immigration march and the workers' rights march from Judkins Park down to Seattle Center. And you can see the umbrellas and the tents out there, but so far the rain really isn't getting in the way.
Huh? Was it good? for?
Their numbers were few, but their message was loud. Veterans Against War kicked off this year's May Day marches this morning at 2nd and University in downtown Seattle. They want less money spent on military and more money spent on social services.
That includes unemployment and homelessness and hunger and malnutrition and illiteracy and infant mortality.
Among the demonstrators was Dan Gilman, who served in Vietnam. He wants President Trump to limit spending on military action and take a different approach.
He talks about being the big negotiator. Let's see him use diplomacy and get some of these conflicts settled.
Seattle police officers on motorcycles escorted the group down 2nd Avenue. No sign of trouble from this group, but police are ready for demonstrators looking for trouble. At 8 a.m., in fact, we saw police on bikes patrolling at Westlake Park. I saw some check garbage cans, where demonstrators in years past have hidden baseball bats and other things that could be used as weapons. It's usually late in the day when some demonstrators get unruly and start confronting police. SPD officials say crowd management training and a clear strategy going in will hopefully keep people safe and limit property damage. At the Starbucks Reserve Roastery on Queen Anne, windows are already boarded up, anticipating trouble. Okay, so the big march of the day will start at 1 p.m. from Judkins Park. Demonstrators will march down Jackson Street, down Madison, Denny Way, then 5th Avenue on their way to Seattle Center. A police escort will close those roads and reopen them as that group moves through, so be aware of those traffic revisions. KIRO 7 is going to be there along the route, so you can always check in online to see what's going on. Reporting live at Judkins Park, Jeff Du Bois, KIRO 7 News.
Commute is by car, train, bus, or ferry. You should anticipate major delays throughout the afternoon. King County Metro says once the marching begins, the routing apps that most people count on to get in and out of downtown Seattle on bus lines could be useless. They also anticipate Seattle's First Hill and South Lake Union streetcar service will be affected as well. Link light rail service will operate more 3-car trains during the day tomorrow.
5-year-old. But ever since his wife of more than 70 years went to a nursing home, the days have been long and lonely. So he decided to find a roommate.
Do you want a coffee?
Okay. He ended up with 31-year-old Leah Heitfeld.
Sometimes she cooks good meals. What's that, scones?
It's such a beautiful, unique experience to live with someone so much older than me.
But their 64-year age gap is not even close to being the most unique thing about them.
How did the two of you first talk about this?
He knew I was a young German girl, and he sat down, and the first thing he said is, Leah, I want you to know you're third generation, you're not responsible for what happened.
Stern was a teenager in Poland when the Nazis rose to power. He lived in the Warsaw Ghetto.
River Road still finding a bit of stress. Drivers moving north on the Valley Freeway or I-5 at this point, clearing out 40 minutes. Tacoma into Seattle. That's actually really quite nice. Northbound on the Valley Freeway from 18 up to 516 into South Center. Just that last little bit of slowing into Renton. In fact, this works out 42 minutes from SeaTac in
Tacoma on I-5 actually to Olympia. A little break north of everything. It picks up again. Whidbey Island getting wet. You're going to get wet today, so
20 handles.
Just now getting ready to begin.
May Day, which means a lot of protests.
Way north on 405. Northbound I-5 also has some heat to it right into the downtown Seattle core. We've seen out of the north, southbound 5, southbound 405, all right. You know, there's a little slowing south 405 right around 522, but 520 handles nicely. I-90 looking reasonable across the water, and the Valley Freeway and I-5, the south end, this all quiets out just right. Liz, Bill, Casey, back over to you.
So today is May 1st, known as International Workers' Day around the world, but here in Puget Sound, we know it simply as May Day, which means a lot of protests and demonstrations.
Thousands of people expected to hit the streets, and that is going to have a huge impact on traffic in and around the city. John Hopperstad tracking that for us this morning. John?
Well, yeah, the Veterans Against War just now getting ready to begin their rally here at the Garden of Remembrance. This is on 2nd Avenue and University. There's a good number of them here, but there's actually a lot more police officers. If you look down the line here on 2nd Avenue, you can see a long row of motorcycle police officers here. There's about 20 of them there, and then up the street we've got another 15 to 20 bicyclists. Police on bicycles getting ready for this march, which we're now being told is going to start at around 9:30 this morning. We do have a map giving you an idea of the roads that are being affected by all of these marches. This morning's veteran anti-war formation goes from downtown to the International District. They'll then meet up with the Workers and Immigrants' Rights rally at Judkins Park. That is the largest rally and the largest march. That march starts at 1 p.m. and ends near Belltown. Now, there is a third event, the May 1st Action Coalition rally as well. That begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Now, we spoke with one of the organizers of the Veterans March. He says it's very important today to get their message out, and they're calling for no more war.
Is stop attacking the people that we swore to defend. So that includes homelessness and malnutrition and racism and a whole list of things.
Now, the Veterans Group will eventually meet up with the Workers and Immigrant Rally, as we mentioned. That's the largest march over the years. It's been mostly peaceful, but there are going to be a lot of police officers along the way, and we're already seeing that this morning as they prepare for this march that we're now being told will start around 9:30. Guys?
Well, ahead of the May Day marches, businesses in Seattle preparing for the possibility that some people taking to the streets could resort to violence. Adam Mertz joins us in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, where windows are already boarded up. Adam?
Well, along Pike Street on your way up to Capitol Hill, you'll notice this right here. It's the only business we've seen quite like this. This is the Starbucks Reserve Roastery. It is all boarded up with plywood, a sign on the front door letting customers know that they will not be open today. They'll reopen tomorrow. Crews started boarding up the Starbucks over the weekend. In previous years, after some of the peaceful marches and protests, we've seen those situations where people start throwing rocks and vandalize businesses. This morning, we talked to several people who are somewhat new to Seattle about their thoughts on May Day, including one woman who was supposed to actually celebrate her birthday at the restaurant inside the Starbucks Roastery.
Confused, and then remembering a warning that my employer said to be wary of protests today.
We're supposed to have my birthday dinner here tonight with my parents in town, so walking down the hill, going to work, and I'm realizing we better make some other plans.
Now, both of those women walking to work from Capitol Hill said that they're certainly going to be aware of everything when they come back home tonight. Another thing to keep in mind as well is that Seattle Central College will be closing at 5 o'clock tonight because of the possibility of some of those demonstrations all across the Capitol Hill area. For now, I'll send it back to you.
Well, it seems the rally for the anti-war formation is getting underway. That's one of the many planned rallies happening in downtown Seattle.
And John Hopperstad following this for us right now. John?
Yeah, Bill, the Veterans Anti-War Rally just finishing up here on the steps of the Garden of Remembrance here at 2nd and University. They're now getting ready to come out here onto 2nd Avenue and begin their march. And you can see they've already shut it down a block up there. You can no longer come down 2nd Avenue for now. We have police here ready to escort them. There were several motorcycle cops up ahead, and they've gone up ahead, and they're blocking off this road as they go. They're going to go about a half a mile before they take a left to James and head up to the International District. That's where they're going to meet up with the big rally, the workers' rally at Judkins Park. They're set to march at 1 o'clock today throughout the city. There is a third official march as well, but there will be a lot of other protests, a lot of other marches going on in the meantime. So traffic is going to be tough down here in Seattle today, and it starts right now in the next couple of minutes as these marchers head out here onto the street and start heading down 2nd Avenue. We'll send it back to you.
Brandy is here this morning, and you've covered May Day for years. You'll be back out there today.
And what's your honest assessment? If folks are worried about, hey, do I need to be going downtown today? What would you say to them?
Well, I think there's a couple different sets of worries, right? If you're worried about traffic, I'd be worried too. I mean, I'm always worried about traffic in Seattle, but this is like to another level. And what you saw John talking about there really is, I think, what we're going to see for the most part today. Marches where we know exactly where they're going to go, exactly when they're going to go there, and Seattle police are going to help them navigate the streets. So that's on the plus side. One of those being the largest march we're going to see today, the Labor and Immigration March. I think we have some video of it, which is kind of a cool celebration. It's basically, think of it like a giant parade, and it is permitted. So we know it's going to go from Judkins Park at 11 down to Seattle Center. Certainly there are going to be some traffic impacts that, of course, you're going to be concerned about if you're going to be in downtown Seattle. But then as we get into the evening, I think the concerns are multiplied because you have this other protest that happens, an anti-capitalist march, as they call it, where things really tend to devolve, and it's not permitted. We have no idea where they're going to go, no idea when they're going to go there. We know that they're starting at Westlake Park at 6 p.m., but after that, sometimes it's just a free-for-all, and there is vandalism, and there is violence. We're hoping, of course, that's not the case this year, but if history has taught us anything, it's that in some cases there are. So to your question, Liz, you know, what would I tell people? What would my honest assessment be? I would say if you don't feel like dealing with any of it, maybe Seattle isn't the place for you to be today. There's a lot of marches going on. There's a lot of protests going on, especially in the evening. If you got a hot date tonight and you were thinking of going to a restaurant in downtown Seattle, unless you want to get in some action in terms of in the middle of the police and the anarchists, I don't know if that's the best place for you to be tonight. That's my honest assessment.
Date might be hotter than you anticipated.
Well, it might be a memorable date, I guess. You know, might be a memorable day.
Maybe not the most romantic. So the biggest security concern today for Seattle police heading into it?
It's interesting. Crowd-on-crowd violence. There is the concern that you're going to have some kind of protesters who are going to be out there, and if there's a verbal confrontation between protesters, police are concerned of the potential that those things could escalate. Here's what Captain Chris Fowler with the Seattle Police Department, who's in charge of all of this today, had to say about that potential.
I think there's a greater opportunity for crowd-on-crowd conflict. And again, for us, it doesn't really matter what your beliefs are, what you're there to promote. Any act of violence by anybody or any serious property damage will elicit a police response.
And we do want to go out quickly, and you're looking at here some file video of some crowd-on-crowd violence, or an example of that. And this was an alt-right speaker that happened at the University of Washington, and we saw some of that escalate. We want to go back out to a live picture of this anti-war formation march that's happening. You see that they're about to get underway on the streets. And this is an example of really, for the most part, what you're going to see today. Again, peaceful protesters, planned marches, permitted marches that are being escorted by police. You know, one of the biggest roles that police play on May Day is just making sure that these people who have planned out their demonstrations and their marches are able to move throughout the city peacefully. That's the role that they're playing. And we're going to have just a ton of these, some small ones, some big ones, happening around the city all day today. So again, back to the initial point of your question, Liz, which is, should people be worried if they have plans in the city today? And I would say everyone should be worried about traffic impacts, certainly. And then as night falls after about 5 or 6 p.m., we're also concerned, of course, about the potential for vandalism and violence in that downtown core. So my honest advice would be, maybe don't be in downtown after about 5 p.m. today. Try to get your business wrapped up and head home before then.
All right, good advice. Brandy, appreciate it. Thank you.
Violence and vandalism.
KOMO's Lee Stoll joins us now live near Judkins Park, where dozens of people participated in the first of several events planned for today. Lee?
Yeah, we backed up just a couple of blocks away from Judkins Park because the group is moving a little bit slowly, but we're here.
Downtown Seattle. In the past, demonstrations had broken down into violence and vandalism.
KOMO's Lee Stoll joins us now live near Judkins Park, where dozens of people participated in the first of several events planned for today. Lee?
Yeah, we backed up just a couple of blocks away from Judkins Park because the group is moving a little bit slowly, but we're here just off of Yesler and 23rd. We've got a police escort in front of us, and you can see the group of marchers here just behind the police officers who are here on their motorcycles. In one lane, traffic is still getting through, and then it's being stopped where you see the group is collected at every intersection. They're stopping and chanting along the way. This is about a 3-mile stretch all the way from downtown Seattle. A few dozen people who are holding banners and flags all joined together right now in the rain, and then the park itself is still probably about a half a mile away. But as I mentioned, about a few dozen people are in this group right now. This is the Veterans Anti-War March. It started close to the Seattle Art Museum down in downtown Seattle about 90 minutes ago. We've had police on motorcycles, on bicycles, protecting this group as they're working their way down what really is a very busy street, 23rd. They started on 2nd Avenue and then worked their way up here off of James Street. Marchers that we have been speaking to tell us they really aren't concerned about violence this early in the day, but they are disappointed that the disruptive actions of a few people overshadow the message that so many are out here to try and support.
It unfortunately labels the whole march as something violent when really it's only a few people.
You get 10, 20, 30,000 people, marching peacefully, and then you get a couple of jerks throwing a brick through a window, and they get all the media attention. That's also disappointing.
Now, I want to show you really quickly. Take a look up on Capitol Hill where we were this morning. Every window at the Starbucks Reserve on Pike is boarded up. A sign on the front door says they are not going to reopen until tomorrow morning. Other businesses are adding security for their staff tonight. Some are closing at about 6 p.m. when the main May Day march begins downtown. Now, again, we are following the Veterans Anti-War March. This is on 23rd at Yesler Way right now. The group making their way down to Judkins Park. They started at about 9:30 this morning in downtown Seattle. A few dozen people here out this morning again with a full police escort down what is normally a very busy street. So if you use this road, be prepared for some backups and delays. This is the first again of 2 major marches in Seattle today. So as you're heading downtown today, just expect for some traffic delays as these groups are moving their way through. But so far, a very peaceful start to May Day here in Seattle. We'll have another update in about 30 minutes. Guys, back to you.
If you do plan to protest this May Day, Washington State troopers have a message for you. Stay off the freeway. It comes in response to calls for protesters to disrupt traffic on the interstates and at airports. State Patrol says it respects the rights of citizens to demonstrate safely, but they will enforce the law. Troopers want to remind people about a serious crash that happened in February after protesters blocked I-5 in Burlington.
The afternoon commute could be a long one for drivers and transit riders in Seattle. Planned May Day marches are expected to snarl traffic downtown. King County Metro is rerouting several buses around streets that will shut down this afternoon. Seattle's First Hill and South Lake Union streetcar service also will be affected. For more specifics, we added a link at KOMOnews.com. Just click on the hot links.
Welcome back, everyone. Give you a live look right now down onto Judkins Park in Seattle. Air 4 is overhead, and you're taking a look right now. You see some demonstrators starting to gather there. Of course, this is May Day. Lee brought us some pictures of a march through downtown Seattle that was supposed to end in Judkins Park. Just the beginning of many demonstrations we're expected to see throughout today. In years past, we've seen peaceful protests such as this, demonstrations, at least from what it appears from up above and from what Lee was bringing us. But SPD has said they will have no tolerance for any vandalism or violence, particularly as the day wears on. Our own Corwin Hake is down on the scene saying that demonstrators are leading drum chants down there at Judkins Park. Looks like a strong showing, but no doubt we'll definitely see more people starting to gather as the day goes on. We are tracking everything on KOMO News, on KOMOnews.com, KOMO News Radio. We're all there for you, Facebook and Twitter.
Well, it's been a peaceful start for May Day marches today here in Seattle.
Demonstrators wrapping up one of 2 marches expected today to make its way through the city. KOMO's Lee Stoll joins us now live at Judkins Park at the end of that first march. Lee, how'd it go?
Well, actually, we're in the middle of 2 converging marches right now. You can see behind me here one larger group of worker and immigrants' rights protesters, a lot of signs being held up, a few dozen people in this crowd here. They started at one end of Judkins Park. They're making their way up to the larger staging area and the ball fields that are up here. And as we swing across this way, you can see several police officers here as well, just making sure everything is going well right now. And the people that we've been talking to say this is the kind of May Day that they've been hoping for, that everything has been peaceful so far. We can even move up a little bit farther. This is the end of the Veterans Anti-War March that we had been following since about 9:30 this morning. This group took off from 2nd Avenue close to the Seattle Art Museum, made their way down 2nd Avenue, up James, down 23rd, and then they just made it out here to, again, Judkins Park, where another smaller march is about to meet up with them. And along the way, we really did see a large police presence, just making sure the group was able to move down the road very smoothly because these are pretty busy roads that they had been on, again, 23rd and 2nd Avenue early this morning. So this group certainly has gotten larger than what we saw. When we saw them take off at about 9:30, there were only about 24 or so, and it has grown as the day is going on. Maybe the rain dissuaded a couple of people early in the morning, but a lot more people have certainly shown up as the day goes on. So this is the end of the Veterans March, again, which started at about 9:30 this morning. One of the two main events that we have seen planned for May Day today. And the people who are part of this telling us this really has gone off without a hitch. It's been peaceful. They've been able to move along just as they were hoping. And behind us here, if I'm going to swing, I'm going to take my photographer, Josh, very gently by the shoulder as we see this other group, again, representing workers and immigrants' rights, now coming up to the ball fields to join this group. So this is what we're expecting throughout the day. The group, the people who are participating in May Day events, just growing larger and larger as all of these groups are starting to come together. And of course, we'll continue to bring you that coverage, let you know how the day goes on. But so far, so good. Guys, back to you.
And SPD says they're going to be giving their first update coming up at noon. So tune in to KOMOnews.com for anything that they have to say of how the day's gone so far. May Day protests, meanwhile, turned violent in Paris today. The country is currently in a heated and tight presidential race. Some protesters held signs opposing the far-right candidate, Marine Le Pen. Police fired tear gas as they faced off with protesters. At one point, officers had to dodge Molotov cocktails. We want to get back to our live team coverage of this May Day. Chopper 7 is now in the air and over Judkins Park for the Immigrant and Workers' Rights Rally. Right now, as you can see, Cover 7's Amy Clancy is on board Chopper 7. Amy?
Well, Michelle, I have covered this rally many times over the years. Hundreds of people typically gather at Judkins Park. They rally for a couple of hours beginning at 11 o'clock, and then around 1 o'clock, they make their way downtown through the streets of Seattle for another rally that's downtown. Now this year, they're going to march down 6th Avenue and to the Seattle Center for the first time. And typically, as the time goes by, more and more people join this rally. Right now, it looks like only a couple of hundred people are there. There have been crowd estimates up to 20,000 people. But as you can see, at this point, not that many people are gathered at Judkins Park. But as time goes by, more people will gather, and they will also add numbers as they begin their march. So at this point, they're still rallying. They'll be rallying for another hour or so, and then we will see this crowd start to move downtown through the streets of Seattle and eventually to the Seattle Center. And they estimate they'll be there about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Michelle?
All right. Thank you, Amy.
Also this noon, crowds are gathering at Judkins Park in Seattle, kicking off an afternoon of activism on this Seattle May Day 2017. A live look here at so far the largest organized and fully permitted event of the day, the El Comité and May 1st Action Coalition Rally and March. You can see a group there standing, listening. It is raining. 8,000 people expected to attend according to the permit. The rally got underway at about 11, and the group plans to march through downtown and finish at the Seattle Center in a little while here. Police plan to maintain a significant presence along with the group as they have in years past, closing streets as necessary. Everyone, of course, expecting this protest to remain peaceful. Right now, Seattle police are giving a briefing before things really heat up today. They've been preparing for quite a while. Let's listen in.
Talk that they're going to be at Westlake Park this afternoon, may give speeches and those types of things. So we'll shift our attention over to there in the next couple of hours.
Is your level of concern on crowd-on-crowd violence? I saw some of it on Inauguration Day. It's different than years before. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, and the chief mentioned this in a briefing earlier in the week, that years past we've seen violence and property damage against the businesses. Last couple of years it's been against the police. This year I think it's really much more a crowd-on-crowd threat. Certainly we've seen that nationally. Taking that into consideration with our staffing and our tactics, and I think we're prepared to be able to deal with that if it happens.
How do you navigate the two sides then? I mean, allowing them to, express whatever they want to express, but also, trying to protect the safety.
All right, we're listening to Captain Chris Fowler there with Seattle Police. He's been the one spearheading a lot of the preparations for May Day. Our Alyssa Hahn there, I just heard her ask about this crowd-on-crowd violence, the potential of that. Of course, he says that is top of mind throughout today as we continue May Day 2017. Let's get to King 5's Ted Lamb. They're live at Judkins Park. Ted, can you hear me? What are you seeing there so far?
Again, there are a lot of groups representing many different causes and interests gathering here at the park. Off to my side, you can see just how many people are starting to converge on this part of Judkins Park. They represent labor groups, immigrant rights groups, environmental groups, a whole bunch of different causes here in Seattle, which are all coming together here to start the march through the city throughout the day. One of the people who just took the microphone just in the past few minutes is City Council member Shama Sawant, who actually is right up there now talking. We can listen into a little bit to some of the comments that she just started making about 10 minutes ago.
In calling for a chant right now. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. 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 Solidarity. Solidaridad.
So a lot of political messages within the crowd, certainly this year with the Trump administration now into office, starting to make some changes and set new policies in the country, and that is guiding a lot of what the crowd is out here protesting today. Their march starts at 1 this afternoon. They'll make their way through the city, eventually ending up at Seattle Center. We'll be following them throughout the way and bringing you some updates as this march starts. For now, live at Judkins Park, Ted Lamb, King 5 News.
And we'll also be watching Shama Sawant very carefully. Previously, she said she wants protesters to block freeways and intersections. She tried to clarify that, so a lot to watch for there as well. Here's what that route looks like from Judkins Park, where Ted is right now. This is where the group plans to walk, that El Comité and others. They're looking to go north, South Jackson Street, cut through there, north on 12th, then down East Madison, past Westlake Center, all the way to the Seattle Center Space Needle, where Ted was just mentioning there. So it's a little bit longer than most routes this year, and they've had a lot of interest from a lot of other groups. So they typically pick people up along the way. We'll see how that turns out. It is May Day for everybody, not just Seattle. Let's take a live look in San Francisco at 12:05 this afternoon. A lot larger protests there. People have been demonstrating outside the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office. No violence to be making note of there, but certainly a much nicer day as well. So might be adding to the protesting, but so far, again, much larger than what we're seeing in Seattle. Protests are expected to remain peaceful. Still some businesses not taking any chances. Last night, the Starbucks roastery on Capitol Hill boarded up its glass windows. In the past, illegal May Day protests have produced several broken windows from some groups. We spoke with some Seattle tourists in town who say they're aware things could get interesting.
Yeah, that's been made very, very clear. That these things do get out of hand, that people can get hurt and hurt bad.
That would make me a little more cautious to, be out on our own. And we have, I have little kids back at the room with papas back there with them, and so I don't know if I'd want to be having them out and about necessarily, but.
This will be El Comité's 18th year for protesting on May Day. The group says they've never had a violent incident, and they certainly don't condone it or any law breaking during the march. Let's take a look at some of the other unpermitted marches scheduled for later this afternoon. Have made note of their presence downtown. It could impact your commute. 4 o'clock, an event called Stand Against Communism is planning to rally. The group's Facebook page says it'll start at Westlake Center in March, but that could change. There are at least 2 self-proclaimed anti-fascist groups that plan to come out around 6 tonight, one at the King County Juvenile Detention Center, the other at Judkins Park. Seattle Central College, which has been at the center of a lot of this, at least as a meeting place, have canceled classes tonight because of the protests. The Broadway campus is often used as a site. All classes after 5 are canceled. The college says the safety and security of students is the most important thing.